Welcome to SAT TV News. Thanks for joining us. I am Alicia George. In our top stories, former national cricketer laid to rest. Parliament approves 2014-2015 national budget. In the region, horrific Trinidad highway accident claims family of 3. And internationally, Ebola doctor in Sierra Leone dies. In sport, the second annual Youth Nation Cup kicks off with a bang. Details of these will follow. Welcome back. Hundreds of Dominicans, including family, friends, and members of the cricket fraternity, converged at the St. Gerald's Hall on Wednesday for the funeral service of the late former cricketer Gifford Walsh. Walsh, who died on Saturday, July 19th as a result of a vehicular accident, has left to mourn his widow Regina Walsh, their children, and the sporting fraternity in Dominica. Walsh was a finance officer at the Forestry, Wildlife, and Parks Division. He was a member of the Dominica Cricket Association (DCA) executive, where he served as the events manager for all regional and international games hosted in Dominica. He was a national cricket selector and excelled as a wicketkeeper and batsman on the National and Windward Islands teams, and was a member of the Cavaliers Sports Club and the Saints Sports Club of Goodwill, where he served as treasurer. Walsh was also a national table tennis player, a national footballer, and a referee, as well as a musician. Prior to his passing, he was coordinating the upcoming West Indies Cricket Board WICB Regional Women's Cricket Tournament to be held in Dominica from August 5th to the 14th. In honor of Walsh, the Dominica Cricket Association opened an official condolence book for signatures at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium last week. The 2014-2015 national budget was approved on Tuesday following the closing statements by Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit. The $552.4 million tax-free budget, introduced on Wednesday, July 23rd, was presented during the first meeting of the 5th session of the 8th Parliament, aimed at growing and developing the country and its citizens. During his final presentation, PM Skerrit said the absence of the opposition United Workers' Party (UWP) in Parliament demonstrates their lack of interest in the issues affecting the nation.
Runs by 40%. Now, Madam Speaker, countries have relationships, but that doesn't mean automatically you get money from them or you get assistance from them. It's about sincerity. So you cannot have relations with China without making very clear that you support the international law which states that there is but one China. You cannot want to benefit from the people of Venezuela and from President Maduro if you are quoted by the ambassador here and the embassy here of cursing Venezuela left, right, and center. And with your poor fiscal management that you're proposing, that there is no way the European Union will put money into a country or government that is reckless within management of state finances.
Prime Minister Skerrit said as a result of his government's prudent management of its resources, Dominica is one of the few countries in CARICOM receiving budgetary support from the European Union. The country's leader stressed that Caribbean countries such as St. Lucia and Barbados are either offering salary cuts or sending workers home. He said this is not the case in Dominica because his administration is managing the affairs of Dominica in a responsible manner.
So if these guys do not love senior citizens, that's a matter for them. They do not love children and babies, Madam Speaker, that's a matter for them. But thank God the people of Dominica continue to place in us their confidence and their trust, and they know for sure that their future will always be better secured with the Dominica Labour Party in office, Madam Speaker.
Prime Minister Skerrit expressed confidence that when elections are called, the Dominica Labour Party will return to Parliament with an increased mandate of seats. Domlec, Dominica's sole electricity provider, now has a lot more time to get their finances and paperwork in order as the Independent Regulatory Commission (IRC) on Wednesday, July 30th, announced that the decision was taken to defer Domlec's tariff review application. The application was submitted 9 months ago, following the operation of its new transmission and distribution licenses in January of this year. Executive Director of the IRC, Lance McCarthy, said with the pending general elections, a submission has been moved from September 2014 onto or before May 2015.
Now that general elections are likely to be held within the year, and I'm talking about within the year, I'm talking about from now, going forward. Because of the mandated transparency requirements of the Commission, as well as the public interest which any price review generates, the conventional wisdom among regulators has been for them to avoid conducting public proceedings such as tariff reviews, where the discussion itself could be politically charged and thus impact the objectivity of the inputs received. There is tacit consensus that the outcome of any decision on an issue such as tariffs could influence the outcome of a plebiscite, and therefore it is not recommended that regulatory proceedings, which should be independent of and isolated from political outcomes, be conducted during the electioneering period.
McCarthy also noted the consideration and approval of the utilities' long-term expansion plans and medium-term investment program is a procedure which the Commission would wish to complete beforehand in order for the related impact that could be included in the tariff submission. He said it would help the process if there was greater clarity about Dominica's geothermal generation development program and the consequential north-south transmission line infrastructure. These are issues, according to McCarthy, which cannot be settled during this current year.
The tariff regime contemplated in DOMLEC's transmission, distribution, and supply license is for a mandated review of the tariff every 3 years with annual adjustments for inflation. Because of the impact of these major investments on capital requirements and on operational efficiencies, it would be prudent to include these impacts in any tariff consideration. The Commission is aware that completion of the tariff review as soon as possible is desirable. But the risk to consumers of a tariff which does not include the anticipated efficiency gains and other improvements associated with the new investment is undesirable.
McCarthy said it is because of these two issues that the Commission at its board meeting held on May 22nd made the decision to defer the tariff review application. However, the IRC will continue to work with DOMLEC to determine the weighted average cost of capital WACC, the asset base, and the long-term expansion and medium-term investment plans. Research plant pathologist Dr. Clayton Shillingford says the low number of students registering for agricultural subjects at the Dominica State College is alarming given the country's background in the sector. He made the remark during an interview with SAT-TV on Tuesday.
I was somewhat put out to learn that the Dominica State College, the number of students who are registered in agriculture is extremely low.
According to Dr. Shillingford, Dominica's foundation is rooted in agriculture. Therefore, when the youth move away from the industry, it doesn't help the economy.
I don't know how you can have an economy that its foundation is agriculture, and when you go to your top educational institution, you have the number of students who are going in there at a very low level, and many of these students are in other areas, and it seemed to me that their interest in the other areas was preparatory for them to go to university and to some large extent to exit the country.
Dr. Shillingford suggested that the government employ a policy of targeted career counseling to revitalize interest in the agricultural sector. He also added that the government should engage prospective students on the importance of agriculture.
Parallel to that, to establish in the minds of prospective students the importance of agriculture and the fact that it can be an area in which you can be gainfully employed, whether you are in the business in terms of you have a farm, or if you are in the business in agricultural research, or you are in the business of extension and education in agriculture.
Dr. Shillingford added it is very critical that the country has people who are competent and educated, adding that the development of any country depends on the quality of its human resource.
For you to have the efficiency inside the system, it's very critical that you have people who are competent. And the competence comes from your educational background, but it also comes from the suitability of that education to the circumstances in the country. And if you look at some countries where even if they have limited physical resources, a country like Singapore, it is the brain power of the people that's moving that country.
The research plant pathologist further stated that more research needs to be conducted as it relates to agriculture in order for Dominica to become a competitor on the international market. We now go to the People's Poll, brought to you by Beacon. When we return, more stories. Welcome back. The opposition United Workers' Party, UWP, has announced that over the next few weeks it would host a series of 21 meetings around the island. UWP party leader Lennox Linton made the announcement during a UWP press conference on Wednesday. According to the party leader, the meetings will be held in all 21 constituencies.
We will have a total of 21 meetings over the period, and some of those meetings will be running concurrently, and our intention is to visit every single constituency in Dominica to set the agenda for jobs in this country, to restate the significance of equal rights and justice and our commitments in that regard.
The meetings will seek to implement proposed measures outlined in the UWP's budget presentation.
The purpose of these meetings across Dominica will be to bring the reality of these truths about us and where we are today into the hearts and minds of the people across Dominica.
Given the country's current economy, Linton does not believe that the national budget recently approved by Parliament addresses economic growth.
This budget falls well short of the requirements, the economic growth requirements of Dominica at this time. Mr. Skerritt is not even sure in the budget what growth he is proposing. He has reported that growth over the last 5 straight years averaged 0.5%, meaning we could not do any better than 0.5%, half of 1% in each of the last 5 years.
The rate of 5% economic growth in Dominica falls relatively short of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank Monetary Council's target of 3 to 5%. In its budget presentation, the United Workers' Party proposed a growth target of 5 to 7% and a promise to deliver 5,000 jobs in the first 3 years if elected to government. According to Linton, the DLP has not given any detailed responses to how measures proposed in the national budget will aid the economy. A commemorative magazine titled Lubia Reunion 2014, Celebrating Our Community, Come Back to Our Roots by the Lubia Reunion Committee on Monday, came to life with a formal launch. During the official launch ceremony on Monday, July 28th, Lubia Reunion Committee member Rhoda James stated the editorial committee who made the magazine a reality comprised of 8 individuals.
We've been working hard. We've been working extremely hard, getting our stuff together, putting our stories together, and making sure that we met the deadline. Crunch time was the biggest part for us. We had to really push towards the last 2 to 3 weeks before we had to send our magazines to press time. And today I am standing here pretty proud to say that I was part of that committee, and our work thus far, we've seen it come to fruition.
Editorial Committee Chairperson Janice Roberts said the must-read magazine also highlights the talents of residents. Editor of the magazine Dion Dura stated the magazine will highlight events and people who have shaped and continue to shape the Lubia community.
The history of Lubia is captured quite effectively by Dr. Lennox Honeychurch, who contributed a very comprehensive piece which looks back at Lubia from its very earliest days. Other important aspects of the community, such as the influence of the Agar family in the Lago area and the contribution of Leopold Emmanuel, better known as Money God, to land development in Wall House are also highlighted. Much of the character of any place is determined by the people who lived there, and Lubia has had its fair share of important national figures. I'm sure you will agree that the most prominent was deceased Prime Minister Dame Mary Eugenia Charles, the region's first female Prime Minister, with a reputation as the Caribbean's Iron Lady. You will know that she made her home in
Other prominent figures highlighted in the magazine include W.O.M. Pond, who wrote Dominica's national anthem, Theodora Joseph, who made significant contributions to education, Mali Pelte for his contributions in transportation, and Urban Harrigan, well known for his role as a master of ceremonies.
We also made space for the less well-known but equally inspiring figures in Loubier, such as Montgomery Richards, more popularly known as Densley, who tells a heartwarming story of turning his life around. And though she's not there, I take the opportunity to thank Delia Coffee Weeks for penning such a beautiful and indeed well-written piece. As editor, I think I'm entitled to a favorite story in the magazine, and this piece was my absolute favorite. So I encourage you to look forward to that piece on Densley. Our young professionals are also in there, and several other features, including a look at sports and the history of the Loubier Village Council. I am confident you will agree that this is 68 pages of very relevant and interesting content, and we're extremely proud to present to you the Loubier Reunion magazine at a retail price of only EC $10. Can you imagine? Quite a steal, if you ask me.
A copy of the magazine was presented to Acting Prime Minister Honorable Ambrose George, who is also the parliamentary representative for the Roseau South, which Loubier is a part of. A team of 6 was elected to serve on the Kalinago Council following council elections on Monday. That team includes Patrick Hill, Jumadin Frederick, Theodore Williams, Matthias Valmore, Rennie Ogis, and Herod Langlais. Speaking with SAR TV, Assistant Returning Officer Kathleen John Lewis noted 31% of registered voters turned up to cast their ballots.
There were 29 rejected ballots, 621 people voted, thus representing a 41% of the electorate.
John Lewis told SAR TV that the council will hold a meeting with the local government department on Thursday to determine an inauguration date. The new council will work with recently elected Kalinago Chief Charles Williams to develop the territory for the next 4 to 5 years. Chief Williams will serve as chairman of that council. This has been the local segment of the news. Coming up next, regional highlights.